Yeah. We back, baby. Episode 5 of Laser Show. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry for the wait. Also, stop posting on my stuff. Do another episode. I'm gonna. Chill out. I'm gonna do it whenever the hell I want. And sometimes it's gonna be a really long hiatuses. So sorry about the long hiatus. This episode, it's bomb as hell. We're talking about Hal. We're talking about my old roommate, Hal. Hal was my first roommate in LA when I first moved out. Well, that's not true. Technically, I lived in LA for a summer between my junior and senior year of college, and I lived in a hostel. I lived in a hostel on Crenshaw with 40 people, one house. My bedroom had 8 guys in it, 4 bunks. 4 bunk beds, 8 men, and there was another room adjacent that was 6 girls, and the 14 of us shared one bathroom. And the whole house shared one fridge. 40 people. So that was technically my first living situation. But as far as living out here permanently, my first roommate ever in LA was a good old boy named Hal. So I'm going to tell you about Hal. I found Hal. I knew I was going to move out here right after college, and I did. I graduated in May, drove on out to LA in June, and I didn't know anybody out here. I didn't have any friends, so I went to Craigslist to find a roommate. Classic. Went to Craigslist, found a guy. I knew the neighborhoods a little bit from the summer that I lived here. I was like, okay, I know where things are. Found this guy in West Hollywood. I'm like, West Hollywood's nice. Cheap place. It was like $400 a month, something like that. 400 something. And it was in West Hollywood, and it was sharing a bedroom with this guy. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I don't want to share a bedroom, but I have no money. Like, truly no money at this point, for sure. And whatever, it'll just be like a temporary thing for my first roommate in LA. And I'll just make it work. And this guy's Craigslist was like, hey, I'm a New York guy. I'm from New York. Looking for a roommate. Share a bedroom with me. Cheap rent. West Hollywood. Nice neighborhood. Very nice neighborhood. Nicest neighborhood I've ever lived in. And, let me know a little bit about you. And I'll get back to you. And I emailed him. I'm like, dude, hey, New York. Hey, Massachusetts here. East Coast. Chill guy. I want to, do comedy and stuff out there, but I'm going to find a job and everything. And he was like, great. I think you're the one, buddy. And I was like, hell yeah. This guy rules. And so he's like, let's do a phone call. And we do a phone call before I moved out. And that's when I first thought, oh, this guy sounds older. I thought he was kind of, the way he typed, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I thought it was my age or in his 30s or something. But on the phone call, oh, this guy might be in his 40s. Maybe even 50s. He kind of sounds like an older voice. I said, all right. Not what I was expecting, but we'll make it work. And I drove across that country. Took like 4 days. I hauled ass. And I get to the apartment. And I get there at like noon, 1 p.m. or something. And I knock on the door. I walk up with, a little bit of my luggage, maybe a suitcase. Walk up and knock on the door. And Hal answers the door. And Hal is an 81-year-old man. 81 years on this earth. And just a hunched over old man missing a bunch of teeth, straight up. And I was like, oh, Jesus God. Oh, Christ God. His face was all fucked up. We'll get into that. He had like an eye that was like sunk in. And he was missing a bunch of teeth. Spry old man. He opens the door. I'm like, oh, fuck. He goes, come on in. Friendly. Full of life. Really full of life. And he goes, come on in. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, okay. And I walk in, and this apartment was batshit bananas. He was a hoarder. Hal was could have been on the show Hoarder. Like, every single wall. It was organized, though. It wasn't like a big mess. You know, on those shows, it's like a bunch of, you're wading through toys and trash and shit. No. His was boxes. He put everything in boxes in every single wall of every room. And this was a two-bedroom, two-level apartment. And every single wall was floor-to-ceiling boxes, just full of just anything. Just electronics or just magazines or like pots and pans. Just stuff. Just good old-fashioned stuff. And every single wall, including my bedroom. Well, we'll get to the bedroom in a minute. I need to slow down. So I walk in and I see that, and I'm sullen. I'm a little crestfallen. This isn't, I don't like this place much. So right when you walk in, there was like a table, with a bunch of shit on it. But it was the most open table that there was. And, there was a little bit of empty space on the table with two like big chairs on either side of it. Big cushiony chairs. And a light right overhead, like a interrogation style kind of. It was like a nice light. It wasn't a bad light. But just the light over this table with these two chairs. Nice light, I swear to God, nice light. So he says, sit down. I'm going to give you the welcome to the apartment talk. And I'm like, oh God, there's a talk that he's done before and seems to have rehearsed. I said, okay, and I sit down. And then he sits down on the other chair. And the first thing he says to me, he goes, okay, so you may have noticed I'm missing a bunch of teeth. And I was like, nah. Let me see. He goes, I lost a bunch of my teeth because I have gum cancer. Because the doctors had to put a plate in my head, a metal plate in my head, because I flew a plane into a tree in the war. And so that was just the first thing he told me. And the war, I assume Korean. He is 81. So by my math, I don't know, I assume Korean. But I never asked. He just said, the war. I said, oh, yeah, the war. I understand. And that's why his eyeball was sunk in. Because he he flew a plane into a tree. And he survived, I suppose. But his whole head was caved in. And he was missing a bunch of teeth. Wild looking fella. Like buzz cut, hair kind of sticking straight up. Wild looking man. And he gives me the talk. He goes, the lease is only 4 months. Because after that, people usually want to get out of here. I was like, oh man, okay. All right. Well, 4 months. I can do 4 months. That's sad that he had to admit that. But, yeah, I also want to get out of here for sure. So then he brings me up to our room that we're sharing. And he brings me upstairs. We got to go upstairs. I mean, beautiful apartment if it wasn't Hal's apartment. And he brings me upstairs. And we go into the bed. There's 2 bedrooms. And I'll tell you about the other bedroom in a minute. But we go into our bedroom, and there's no beds. It's merely an air mattress that was for me. And Hal slept on a pile of 3 blankets. And they were identical Texas Hold'em blankets. They had cards on them. Black blankets with cards, and they said Texas Hold'em a bunch of times. 3 of those he slept on top of, as though it were a bed. And he goes, I got this air mattress for you. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. And of course the room is filled with, boxes floor to ceiling. So we're just sleeping, including my closet. So I had a closet, but I didn't have the closet was full. But I had access to, I could shove some of my shirts in between the boxes in this closet. I was allowed to do that. So that was kind of my closet. And my air mattress was pretty kind of nestled into the closet area. And then just boxes and boxes. And there was a computer desk with a chair and one of those rolling pads, because it was all carpet, this place, and and a little TV on it, that like a 13-inch like tube TV, and that's where I put my laptop, and that was my little hang station. He let me just kind of pretty much have that desk, which was pretty tight. It was pretty much my desk. And so anyways, so I see all this stuff, and I see I'm sleeping on a friggin' air mattress in this like spooky bedroom with a shit ton of boxes at the feet of Hal. We would sleep perpendicular. I would sleep like at his feet. I was maybe, I don't know, 5 feet from his feet, I would say, on an average sleep cycle. And so I'm kind of freaking out about the bedroom and the apartment, so then Hal leaves the room, and I'm in the room like unpacking my stuff, and I start crying because I start freaking out. This is now the second podcast in a row, I guess, where I am a little bitch, and I started crying. So I'm like, what if I don't know anyone, I don't have a job, I don't have any friends, I'm like scared, I'm in a big new city, and like this is my living situation, like why did I do this? And so I was freaking out, I started crying a little bit. And then I went outside, and I called my mom. I called my parents. But I talked to my mom first, and I to tell her that I had arrived, and I told her about the living situation and how I was kind of freaking out. And I just remember my mom started dying laughing. She thought it was the funniest thing. She laughed right in my face. She didn't have any sympathy. She didn't want me driving across the country at all. And I think she got a real tickle out of this, and I guess that helped me get my head on straight a little bit. I was like, okay, I guess it's kind of funny. Let's just live, buddy. Stop crying. And so I unpacked my stuff, and then I met one of the other roommates. I don't remember their names, but they were both video game testers. One guy had like a ponytail, and he was young, 20s, I think. And he had a ponytail, and I met him at some point, and he was really friendly. He was like, hey man, yeah, welcome. He's like, you want to smoke a joint? I was like, dude, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I didn't really smoke at all at this point. Still very much a noob. But we go out, so we had access to this like little back patio area. Man, I forgot about that. Oh, that little patio. I didn't even think of the little patio. Yeah, the patio is tight. There was like a couple of chairs back there. And the other neighbors had access to it, but no one ever used it. It was this cool little back patio. And so I go back there with this guy. There's like trees. It's like shaded, wooded, and there's trees over it. It's pretty tight. And I went back there with this guy, and we smoked a joint, and we're talking. I don't remember anything about him. I don't remember this conversation at all. But we smoked a joint, and then he's like, all right, yeah, see you later. And he left or whatever. And so then I was just kind of like my first night by myself in the room. Didn't have anywhere to go. And I remember just unpacking my stuff. Hal stayed downstairs on his computer. He had his little office downstairs. And I was upstairs in the room and just feeling like there might be a spark of hope. I'm glad I got to smoke a joint. Maybe Callie's going to be sick, dude. Right away, people just give you joints. And people have ponytails and shit. Yeah, dude. Maybe this is going to be a fun place. I know I'm a little scared, but this could be cool. And then I never once spoke to that roommate again. I lived here for a year, and I never talked to that guy. I never saw him. He was never home. And the other roommate that shared a bedroom with him was this fucking loser. I hated this guy. He was such a dork. He fucking just wouldn't talk. He has no basic human decency. We live in an apartment together, man. Sometimes you gotta just talk to me. But we would see each other in the kitchen, and I would just try to make conversation. And I'd be like, what are you making, man? And he'd be like, meatballs. And just like, what? They would give like one-word answers and just not engage, and they would not look at you and would leave and not say goodbye. It's just like this robot. Like, fucking get a life, you loser. You don't know how to talk yet? Jesus, fuck. I'm bad at it. I'm so bad at it, but you gotta do it. Oh, I fucking hated this guy. I guess that's not just a very strong reason to hate someone, but I did hate him. I can't deny it. I would just see him and I would get pissed off that he existed. Fuck you, just talk. Anyway, so I shared this bedroom with Hal. Those guys had the other room, And downstairs was Hal's like office. You walk in, there's just like a big like living room, but Hal made it just like his office. We didn't have a living room. What a bummer. That place, it was such a sick setup. But it was like so old and dirty and a hoarder's place. And he moved out, so wonder what it's looking like now. Probably a sexy little place right in West Hollywood. Sick little neighborhood. Awesome spot. But downstairs was like Hal's computer, and he said he was an accountant. That's how he described what he did. I never understood it. He was always on his computer, and I think mostly what he seemed to do to like get by and survive and make money was like he would just never pay for anything. He would always get his money back for like everything he bought, and he would just find ways to email certain people and say that this code of this product doesn't match this, and they would just send him his money back for like everything. Everything I bought, he'd be like, where'd you get that? Like Target. He'd be like, I can get you your money back for this if you want. He'd be like, what Target? Like what time of day? What was the code? Where on the shelf was it? And he would just be able to finagle a bunch of details, lawyer type stuff about products, and then just get his money back. It was pretty wild. And after I moved out, I lived there for a full year, but Hal and I kept in touch because he would get me like really cheap whey protein because he had a hookup at CVS, a guy that probably is a truck driver, I think, at CVS for CVS Corp, and he would get me like those like 2-gallon whey protein jugs that everyone has, and he would get them for like $12 each, and they're normally like $20, and he would get them like $8 off, and then he would get them in bulk. I would get like 10 of them, and I would go over to his house, and I would give him $120 cash. It would have to be cash, and he would give me 12 chocolate. Sometimes I would ask for chocolate. Sometimes he's like, the guy gave me strawberry. Sorry, one of them was strawberry, and I'm like, I'll take it, man. And so for the first few weeks, I would get out as much as I could. I was doing open mics like crazy back in those days. And I started working at Live Nation for $10 an hour. And I would go to the gym in West Hollywood, 24-hour fitness. 24-hour fitness in West Hollywood is a real hot spot for like gay activity. That was my gym. I thrive in that environment, in that energy. So I was staying out about as much as I could because I just felt weird about my living situation. So I was always gone. And for the first couple of weeks, I was just Hal would just like have me try his food that he would make. And he'd be like, try those things in the freezer. They're like Morningstar, like breakfast patties. Like, try those. They're good. And so for the first like 2 weeks, I wasn't even buying my own groceries. I was just eating Hal's food to the point where he was like, hey, you got to stop just eating my food. I was like, yeah, sorry. I got lost in the sauce, Hal. Looking back, that was so rude. I don't know why I just thought that was the setup. I was like, oh, you're going to buy the food? And I was just eating his food. And he was so nice. He's like, listen, he let me go for a while. He was like, I think you should start buying your own food. And I was like, yeah, I just thought because I was sharing a bedroom with an old man, one of the perks would be that you would buy all the food. And I shouldn't have assumed that. I'm sorry. Some of my most poignant memories with Hal would include, it was a whole year I lived with this guy. A whole year I lived with this guy. I never got laid once. I brought one person back ever to this apartment, and it was a girl that would later become my girlfriend. It was towards the tail end. So it took almost like a full year for me to finally bring someone over. But one time he told me, he goes, just out of nowhere, he goes, if you ever want to bring a lady back here, I can make myself scarce. Hal. I was like, yeah, dude, thanks. I'll let you know. And he goes, hey, everyone's got to clean out the pipes every once in a while. I was like, damn, dude, Hal's the man. Hal would I remember one time I was making mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese, and then there's this gross film on the colander, the strainer, after you drain the macaroni. It's this gross film, and he comes over and he goes, if that's what it looks like on that, imagine what it's doing to your stomach. And I was like, fuck, Hal, you're right, dude. Always thought about that. Anytime I would have Kraft mac and cheese. Never stopped eating it. Love this stuff. But I do think, yeah, man. Yeah, Hal's right. Hal, one time, he had hearing aids. He was pretty deaf in like one ear, and the other ear worked a little bit. So you gotta fucking scream at this dude. But one time he forgot to take his hearing aid out when he went into the shower. And I was just like hanging out in the bedroom, and Hal just comes bounding out of the shower, like running, hustling out of the shower, fully naked, wet, holding a towel like over his groin, and just scrambling to get his hearing aid out of his ear because his hearing aid is making this loud screeching noise, this deafening noise, even for me. And it wasn't in my ear. It was so loud, and he's like, "Oh God!" And I was like, "What happened?" He goes, "Oh, I forgot to take my hearing aid out of the shower." Like, "Oh shit, sorry, man. You gonna dry the floor? You want me to dry I'll dry the floor." Nah, I didn't do that. He was a spry fella. Hal was a spry fella. Hal said he would always be leaving to go play basketball. I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're playing I'm gonna go play some basketball." I was like, "All right, Hal, I guess he had friends, or I don't know if he was invited to these things. He didn't go with a basketball, so I assume he was meeting other people." But he would stay in shape by doing 2 exercises every day, bends and pulls. He does 3 sets of each. Bends is when you bend over and then back up. I guess like good mornings is what the workout community, what they might call it at 24-hour fitness in West Hollywood, they might call it good mornings. But he was just bending over, keeping his back straight, and then coming back up. And then he would also do pulls, which is like he would reach out, both hands in front of him, and then pull back as fast as he could. Pull. Just pulling. Just pulling. Bends and pulls. And he was 81 years old, and he was playing basketball. So, folks, you're wasting your time. All this yoga, running, weightlifting. Bends and pulls, dude. Bends and pulls. And he... one time he came home and he said, "You been working out?" I said, yeah, I have. And he goes, "You look like Superman." That was a moment that stuck with me. There's not, I guess, that many. He would always go, "You hitting the clubs?" Like every day. "You been hitting the clubs?" He would always talk to me. He was always talking to me. And I wish I could talk to him now. He was always talking, and I was always just kind of annoyed. Like, "Stop talking to me, Hal." What I wouldn't give to talk to Hal again. "You hitting the clubs?" "Yeah, I'm hitting the clubs." He was always kind of disappointed in like how I was doing, it seemed. But you go, "Oh, you're getting paid?" And I'd be like, "No." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay. Oh, damn." And I'm like, "It's okay. I'm just kind of doing open mics." He's like, "So it's not going well." When I went back I lived there for a year, and when I went back in like 2014, I had just done a comedy festival, the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, that at the time was like my biggest achievement. I was really proud of myself and thought it was like a big deal. And went back, and I got my protein from him one day, years after moving out. And I told him, I was like, "Hey, I got into this really big festival I've been trying to get into for years. I've been doing auditions for it for like 3 years now, and I got in, and I did it, and it went great." And he goes, "So it seems like things are pretty much going about the same for you." And that hurt. That one hurt. That was the only time he's ever just flat out said that I sucked. He was a nice fella, but that one hurt because that was years and years later. Anyway, so I moved out. After a year, I found a place I was like, people were telling me I needed to move. It's like, "Ryan, you got to move out." And I'm like, "You know what? Yeah." I was so used to it after a while. It's just my place. And but I moved out, and I found a place, in my own bedroom with a couple guys, whatever. But we kept in touch for the protein, Hal and I helped him move. He moved out of that apartment to another really nice place in West Hollywood. Also in West Hollywood, and I helped him move a bunch of boxes. What a nice guy I am. He hit me up because he remembered I was like Superman. I was Hal's Superman. And so I go and I helped him with a bunch of boxes, and he gave me a bunch of shit. He gave me like all the pots and pans that I still have now to this day. And they're beautiful pots and pans. You'd be jealous. He gave me some nice pots and pans and like a camera that doesn't work, but it's like a cool old camera. Just stuff like that. He was always just giving me stuff. And the last time I saw Hal, we eventually stopped doing the protein thing. I was just like, I don't want to keep doing this. I'll just get like my own protein, you know? After a while. You know, I can afford just what protein costs. And I'll just buy it like in bulk. I'd buy it in bulk now. myprotein.com. Sometimes just Amazon. Just big. I'm always saving $1. But I stopped doing that. I stopped, so we kind of lost touch. And I saw him must have been like 2017, 2018, in a crosswalk in West Hollywood. So this is now, at this point, 7 years after I've moved out. And I see him in this crosswalk. And I was the first car there. And I yelled at him, I went, Hal! And he heard me. And he looked up, and he knew who I was right away. Oh, my God. And he goes, hey, buddy. And he walks over to my window. He's like, how you doing? And, the light was, like, turning green. I was like, Hal, you're an old man. It's good to see you, but you got to get out of here, man. He was like, yeah, good running into you. And he was still so full of life. So he was, like 88 at this point, 87, 88. So full of life, so happy to see me, good vocal range. Good old Hal. And that was the last time I ever saw Hal. And I think he died. I hit him up at the beginning of the pandemic because it was coming out on the news that the pandemic was really ravaging older people. And Hal at this point is 92. His birthday is November 6th. So I think he would be 92 this year, if he's still alive. But don't think he is, because I emailed him at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, hey, man, crazy, this virus. Just checking on you, seeing how you're doing. And I emailed him at blueboy4all@yahoo.com. That was his email. BLUEBOI, the number 4, all, at yahoo.com. Blueboy4all. Don't know what it is, didn't ask. But I got a bounce back message. This mailbox is full or is no longer working. So I assume he passed away. So I was looking for obituaries online and I couldn't find one. His name was Hal Ely. One time I saw mail. I saw mail and it was addressed to Harold, Herald. Maybe his first name was Harold. Last name Ely, Elee. Harold, Elee. Don't know how to say that. If anyone has any information, do let me know. So I was trying to find an obituary and I couldn't. I was searching for Hal and I was searching for Harold and Los Angeles. I don't know. I didn't know much else about the guy. And I lived with him for a year. So I assume he's dead. I'll email him again after I record this. If he's alive, I gotta go see him, for Christ's sake. Pandemic's over, baby. Let's party. Maybe I'll have him as a guest if he's still alive. But again, don't think he is. And that, folks, I guess, was episode 5. That was it. That's the end. That's all I had to say. And thank you for listening. Again, don't bother me asking when the next episode is. I'll do it. Maybe I'll never do it. Fuck you. Who knows? No, I will. I'll think of something. Just don't rush me, please. Thank you for listening, and God bless the United States of America.